What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the Sun Belt Syndicate, the OG edition, with you from the first kick to the last pitch of the season. Lots of basketball coverage coming your way very shortly. Before we get rolling along too far, shout out to our sponsors, Don't Sleep Energy. Check it out. I got a can right here. Don't sleep. Go check them out. They got
I need to give me a t-shirt like you, bro.
I know, right? With the I'm on the wrong side there. The Nike logo. They have Nike hats, Nike logos, dry fits. So I said it before. I'll say it again. Even if you're not an energy drink person, they've got quality stuff, and the price is right on this stuff too. So if you just like nice, affordable dry fit shirts, I mean, there you go. There's one way to do it. Also, Phenom Elite. That's that P looking logo there. They are at your local Dick's Sporting Goods, football cleats, football gloves, other apparel, and they've got more stuff coming along down the line as well. So that's my side of it. TJ, what's going on in your world today?
Not much, man. I got pulled into coaching basketball, so I'll be doing that starting next week, actually. The 29th is first day of practice. So never met these kids, don't know them, never coached basketball ever in my life, but here we go. So other than that, not much.
Well, I was just going to ask, is basketball a sport that you were good at when you were growing up, though? I mean, it's a natural thing for you to get into coaching for it?
I don't know if I would say good at. I know the fundamentals. I'm decent at it. I mean, I can shoot from the parking lot. I will tell you that. And that's not the brag. I got a jump shot for days. Everything else, though, like I can shoot, I can play defense. That's about it. And I can jump really high. But the handle, all of that other stuff, the drop steps and all the moves and the skills, I can't do all of that. But put me in the corner and I'll shoot the lights out.
There we go. little Steph Curry action?
Well, let's put things in their proper perspective.
Steph Curry. Speaking of Steph Curry, App State was in the conference with them. I'm pretty sure I saw you and the guys go take in the game when Davidson came up the mountain, and we all got to see him play in college in person, right?
Yeah, had to get there early. Well, supposedly it gotten there early. We went around the back when that happened. It was a couple plays of ours. We went in where the basketball players' entrance was, and we kind of went down in the bottom of the convocation center and came up the steps on the player entrance. Probably not what we were supposed to do. However, I was not waiting in that line, which was wrapped around the block and kind of, you know how it goes down River Street?
Yep.
Like it was towards almost the parking deck. That's how long the line was. I was not waiting in that.
That's called football player privilege. I think that's what that's called, TJ.
I don't know what it's called, but I was not waiting. Was not waiting. It was a fun time, though. He dropped 30 on us.
Yeah. Well, they doubled him, and they tried to take him out of the game that way, and Davidson was just too good of a basketball team in general. So he didn't score an amazing amount of points. He still found his way, and then Davidson still rolled to a victory. We got there for the tip-off of the women's game to get good seats. We were like one or two rows back. So, yeah, you're right. You had to get there wicked early to get good seats for that one, because one of the few sellouts in basketball in Boone. Although, again, basketball's coming back up now. We got some teams that are filling barns and hopefully have some good outlooks, but lots of question marks coming into Sunbelt basketball because of how many players were taken or left due to graduation. We've got one Sunbelt basketball player that could possibly see the floor tonight in the NBA starting at 10 o'clock Eastern. That's the Phoenix Suns and App State former power forward center, CJ Huntley. So he's made his way into the NBA and is on the opening day roster. Not sure how much time he'll see, but we do have somebody in the NBA from last year's Sunbelt team. Checked all of the rosters, but we'll see. Hopefully he gets some time tonight on the court.
Yeah, it'd be exciting to watch, man. It's always good when somebody, especially from our kind of neck of the woods and schools like us, when we see these guys play. I mean, obviously he might not be a Kawhi Leonard, but a Kawhi Leonard came from San Diego State, So it's nice to see these guys that don't come necessarily from Power 5 or I guess now Power 4 conferences go in and make some noise. So I'm wishing them the best, man. And I'll see the first quarter and a half, maybe 2 quarters. And We'll see. We'll see what happens over there. I'm old, man. I gotta sleep.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'll make it either, but I would like to see the start of it and just see if he gets in relatively quickly and everything. So we'll see what transpires there. But tonight, for you all tuning in, Week 9 preview, and we've got some midterm grades, something we don't do all the time, right? But it's about that halfway point through the season. We're going to see how we feel respectively. And honestly, TJ and I haven't shared how we graded necessarily. We'll see how much of it is just based on what we've seen by the eye test, how much of it is based on just the record, and how much of it may be based on what we expected to have happen for some of these teams coming into the season. So
part of it, yeah.
And I do think you have to really involve all three, but maybe we'll talk about, leaning on one aspect more than another for that. But before we get going to midterm grades, we are going to take you through the playbook for tonight. It will include the midterm grades. We're going to also talk about the games, as this week we'll have game of the week. We only have 5, so there wasn't a whole lot to choose from, and I didn't feel like there was a group of games. There was kind of one maybe stuck out a little bit more. We're going to go through the You Better Win category. These are the teams that we expect or should win going into this weekend's matchups. We'll round it out with all the other matchups in the Sun Belt for this week. We'll get you through our best bets of the weekend, but right now we are going to get you into TJ's clip breakdowns. Actually, that's a lie. We're going to go into some fan mail we had via the audio version of the podcast. We had a Marshall fan from Charleston, West Virginia, write to us, and you guys can all do this via Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcast. You should be able to kind of write to us if you're interested in doing that. He was talking about something that we covered in the wrap show. Marshall does have 2 losses. We blew 2 second-half double-digit leads, and Gibson took over the defense. Marshall could easily be 6-1. Obviously, that loss to Georgia. As 2 losses were just 1-score losses, they have their fingers crossed for Marshall Thundering Herd playing the Southern Marshall Golden Turkeys, as he says, in the Sun Belt Conference Championship. Wouldn't that be something? I don't know if we can get by JMU, though. They look tough, and I would have to agree. JMU looks kind of like they've got that front runner stance right now. I'm sure we'll cover that in the midterms. Go ahead, TJ.
No, I was going to say, to that point, that's part of, and I don't want to get too far into it because I know we'll go over it shortly, but that's part of the reason why I graded Marshall the way that I did. I gave them a little better grade than their record might show on paper because of the 1-score losses and where they could easily be based on, versus where they actually are. So, and there's a couple teams that I graded that way just because it does matter, right? Eye test matters. Right. These kinds of things, it does matter. You got to close them out when you have them, and you got to win the games, right? The teams that are in front of you. However, there's no such thing as necessarily a good loss, but their losses outside of Georgia obviously are not bad losses. So, and we'll get more into that as we go along, but that's just kind of a prelude into how I graded and what I chose my criteria, part of my criteria to be anyway.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And now we're going to get into, as I always say, my favorite part of what we do here, and this is TJ's clip breakdowns. Unfortunately for us, we only had 2. It was 2 games from last week's slate on national TV. However, we only had 1 over the weekend because the other one was a Tuesday night game. And TJ and I had already played a clip from that one on last week's episode because that one, transpired before our Wednesday preview show. We already showed that. So in this one, we will show you 2 plays from the JMU ODU game, and we'll start with this one here, which is Barnett getting a pass to tight end Josh Pfeiffer. And I don't know if I've shared this much with TJ. I think I missed saying this, but this is Josh Pfeiffer's first catch of the season. But I know TJ appreciates this play, how it's run. It's a 3rd and 2. And again, we'll go through fast once, and then we'll slow it down. TJ can break it down for us as we go further.
Yeah, so everything on this is going to matter, right? Like, obviously, situational football, 3rd and 2. I mean, you've got your big boys in. You've condensed the line of scrimmage. All signs point to I'm going to put my head down and go get these 2 yards. But if you take a look at the linebackers and the safeties, right? That's where I want you to key. That's where I want you to put your eyeballs. Once we bring this back and run it in slow motion, I want you to take a look at the linebacker situation and look at specifically the safety at the top of your screen, right? So you've got your 3 linebackers. You got, well, I guess that would be technically your corner because he's lined up over the tight end. And watch his eyes. We call this being very nosy. Watch his eyes and how he's looking in the backfield. And by the time that tight end gets to him, he's already beat. It's not even close. It's one of those things where it's a great design. And it's one of those things, too, where you do this enough, you line up in big formations enough, and you run the ball. That's the expectation, right? And you hit him with something that they hadn't yet seen. And also, too, to your point, first catch of the season, that's super unexpected. And so, I mean, he runs right past the safety. And by the time he figures it out, it's too late, and it's just a layup throw. I mean, essentially, you couldn't get out there and hand it to him any better. So great play design, even better execution. But that was one of those things where, again, you got caught looking in the backfield because of the heavy package, and it's really unavoidable.
Yeah. I thought that was good. Think you would like that. I don't know how much that was slowing down a lot on my end, but hopefully it was visible for everyone to at least see that. G Will says, I'm a head out. That's our resident ODU fan, so that's why he says that. Don't go anywhere because we have an ODU play coming up now for this one, and just have to jump ahead a little bit and find it in this game. But this was a first half that was completely back and forth, a game that everybody kind of thought was living up to expectation at that point, and unfortunately, it did not, but we will jump into this second play here. This will be Colton Joseph to Trey Brown for a touchdown to take the lead, actually, at this point. And TJ will have you take it from here. Unfortunately for us, this is the part where that massive side of JMU Stadium is shadowing it. So once they get into this look, I think it'll be a little bit clearer, but it is a little bit dark starting out. Trey Brown's going to be the receiver at the top part of your screen. I'll let you take it from here, TJ.
Yeah, I mean, so what you're looking at essentially right here, and anytime you get in the red zone, the idea is that you're likely going to run man. The field condenses. You want to be able – I mean, it's hard, right? It's hard to not run man down here because there's too many holes in the zone, and there's too many spaces for the quarterback to kind of just drop a quick pass in. So you look at the wide splits immediately. If I'm a safety or a corner, I'm saying to myself, they're not good. There's no way that they stay in that lineup because there's nothing that they can run from that, from that perspective. So then they get to play. Obviously, like you said, the safety's coming over. He's going to follow his slot guy all the way to the edge. And now what you're setting up is a one-on-one situation with essentially your best receiver. And it's good on good. And what ends up happening is you change the strong side. So what ODU did twice, pause it for me real quick, Dom. What ODU ended up doing was they changed the heavy side of the formation. So initially, and we'll see it again once we slow it down, but initially that tight end and slot was on the top of your screen. When you bring them down to the bottom of your screen, now you're changing the strong side, which also means that linebacker that was playing the strong side of that field now comes over, so he can't help in any sort of pass coverage situation. So now you've got a true one-on-one with one linebacker, and all he's got to do is pick a side and throw the quick. So go ahead and run it down. And all he's got to do is throw the skinny post, and he's going to throw it right behind the head of that linebacker and right in front of the face of that corner. It's very well thought out, not just from the perspective of the route and the throw, but it's well thought out by the coaching staff to line up in that formation, show it, and then move the strong side once you get the read that you're looking for and understand that it's man coverage. It's brilliant. I mean, it really was perfect execution, first of all. But secondarily, like I said, from the coaching staff, it's one of those plays that you draw up and you say to yourself as they're lining up, this is exactly what I needed to see.
Which we're slowing down here, but hopefully it's
get into. So did we is it pause up on us?
Did it disappear? Yeah, no, it kind of froze up. Is it coming back now?
Yeah. But I don't know if they saw the whole thing, but it was like I said, in this situation, like everybody's coming over now, and then the strong side shifts. So now the defensive end or linebacker that was on the strong side initially changes the side of the field. So now you've got nobody over there. There's not a single human being over there other than the corner that he's got to worry about. So when he snaps his ball, it's already a pre-snap read. Everybody's up at the line of scrimmage, right? There is no way that first of all, no way the corner can stop him from getting inside. And second of all, if he does get inside, there's no help from the linebacker because he's already moved over to the strong side of the field. It's great. It really is great. And ODU did an excellent job of executing it, and it was a great play call.
Yeah, we're going to – yeah, it was. I don't know how much that was terribly streamed. I will apologize. I don't know. I think maybe just too many things running to but we try and bring that because it's what TJ does so well, which is break down things that we may have seen a little bit of, but we didn't see the intricacies or maybe understand what was transpiring. And I thought that one was interesting because, like you said, there was so much movement pre-snap. And then that movement very obviously opened up one of the better players to make a play. And that's exactly what happened with those two matched up. We had Sam Talk Sports jumping on. Good evening, fellas. Good evening, Sam. Thanks for jumping over and checking us out here. We are going to take a quick look at the updated standings before we get into the grades that we gave out. I just wanted to kind of look at this as a whole first, and then we'll be able to kind of talk about the grades because I didn't put the records on each one of the pages. Thought it might just be a little too much. But we've got JMU in front over here in the East at perfect 4-0, 6-1 overall. Southern Miss and Troy both perfect over on the West side, both just 3-0 to note over there, and also both 5-2 overall. We've got two teams on either side at 2-1 in the conference, including Marshall and Arkansas State. Even though Arkansas State sitting with that just 3-4 overall record there, the Louisiana schools both sitting at 1-2. Texas State, South Alabama, 0-3 each. ODU, App State, Georgia Southern, all 1-2 in conference. Georgia State, the only winless team over on the east side. Is there anything maybe before we get into the grades that you want to talk a little bit more specific to the standings here, TJ, or do you want to kind of save some of your points for when we talk about teams individually?
No, I mean, we talked about it, I think, a bit last week. The two surprising teams in the East that are at or near the top, Coastal and Marshall. Not so much as a surprise more than it is, I guess I didn't expect it. I expected ODU, JMU, and potentially App State to kind of be at the top of the conference, at least on the East. But we've got some, new blood. Coastal's been kind of up and down, right? Year in and year out. So it's kind of hard to kind of project where they were going to be. But other than that, no, I mean, and obviously the same one that we talked about last week, Southern Miss, completely flipped on their head in terms of what they were last year to what they are now. So mad respect to them. And again, South Alabama being at the bottom of the West just continues to blow my mind. Yeah.
I agree with you there. We got Artie jumping in saying, hi, y'all. What's up, Artie? Ben James, right before Artie says, glad to see the Bobcats at the bottom. Little twist of the knife there. But going back to a clip, TJ, G. Will's got a good question for you. From a player's perspective, even watching film to prepare for it the next week, how difficult is it to prevent what is most likely the things that could go wrong defensively?
So, I mean, you watch film for a couple different things. You watch film for tendencies and you watch film for formational changes, right? Now, a good coaching staff, week to week, is going to give you a same look and run a different play out of it, right? So it's hard to say that when it's 3rd down and 3 and they go into this front, this is likely what they're going to run. Sure, you can scout for that or you can plan for that, but they also know that that's what you're looking at. So they're going to give you they're going to give you that same look on 3rd and 3, but then they'll run, a backside reverse off of it, or they'll run, maybe a toss sweep when normally they run, some kind of off, zone action. So it's to answer your question, even after watching film, you still have to make sure you're paying attention and reading the keys during the game. Film's going to tell you one thing, but trusting your eyes and what you see and knowing where you're supposed to be looking, That's going to tell you really a lot of where you need to go. And two, in college, a lot of it is game plan and scheming, sure, but there's a lot of situational football that goes on. And in that situational football, it's sometimes my guy's just better than your guy, and I'm going to take a shot no matter what, right? I think tendencies and those kinds of things rear its head more in the NFL game than it does in the college game, just because all of those guys in the NFL are smart, right? They got there because they were the best on their team at some point. In the college game, it's a little bit different because from week to week, you're talking about college kids who have school and have all these things. They're not studying film 100% of the time. So as much as you think you've prepared for it, you can also kind of fool some college kids with some things. And again, my guy's better than your guy. So I know that was a long answer, but it prepares you in terms of cues and tendencies and those kinds of things, but you still got to trust your eyes during the game.
Yeah, I like that. Here's a good example of what you're talking about, not necessarily just watching film, because who was it that the linebacker, when Cam Newton called him out and said, "Oh, you've been watching film, huh? Watch this."
That is exactly right. That is exactly right. That was God, who was that? Oh God.
It wasn't Watt, was it?
Was it TJ?
No,
was it TJ
no.
Watt? No. Oh, it was one of those really, really smart linebackers, and I forgot his name. But they ran. So normally and that's a perfect example, Dom, because normally when they line up in that formation on the goal line, they put everybody over to the left. They have a tight end, and then they have Christian McCaffrey to Cam's right. He runs that bubble, right? I'm sorry, that flat route. Well, instead of running that flat route, this time he ran almost like a bang 8 or a skinny slant. Or I guess you can call it an arrow route if it's a running back. And he cut right up underneath that linebacker. So, yeah, those are the kinds of things that I'm talking about. You pick up on keys and cues, and then they give you that same look and run something completely different out of it.
He's Sam says gotcha. Perfect. Ben said last Thursday, Coach Jones broke out some film for those in attendance at the coaches show for Arkansas State. That's pretty cool. I did not know that was something that was ever done. So that's a cool feature if you guys attend coaches shows. Maybe some other coaches may do something like that. Sam also calling out JMU versus Southern Miss for the ship, with Southern Miss coming out on top in a tight one. You heard it here first. Well, okay. Maybe. I mean, it's looking that way right now for sure. As we just looked at the standings, as we look right now, both of those teams at the top, although I guess technically Troy is also tied with Southern Miss there right now. Okay. Time to get into the midterm grades. Right before we do this, TJ, this is something I purposely didn't ask you to prepare for. What kind of student were you in high school and maybe college to that extent? Like, were you an all A's guy? Were you struggling to get by? What kind of student were you?
So believe it or not, in high school, I was kind of a nerd. I literally had perfect attendance all the way up until my senior year. So like I was that guy. Graduated with a 3.8 GPA in high school. So I wasn't the smartest guy in my high school, but certainly took school very seriously. And then I got to college and realized, maybe school isn't all that. No, I don't. It's important. If you're listening, school is extremely important. Go to school and do what you're supposed to do. But when I got to college, I still was a pretty good student. I graduated with a 3.4 in college. So
nice.
Even that I was okay, but certainly took it much more seriously in high school than I did college.
Nice. Okay, I was gonna say, is that door shut so that your son can't hear that comment?
Yeah, and he's in bed, or he better be in bed. Of course, I don't know. His ear could be right by the door here. Who knows?
Yeah. You never know. Well, just to throw it out there for everybody, I was one of those ones early on in school at a younger age, was in like the advanced classes and all that. That ended real quick, man. I started getting into extracurriculars with sports and hanging out with friends. And it wasn't that I couldn't keep up with the work. It was that I became a procrastinator pretty good. So everything was rushed last minute, not the best effort, not the best work. So by the time high school ended, I was one of those struggling to get by kind of kids, like a bunch of C's and B's and not a whole lot of A's. But it was laziness. Luckily it wasn't like I was actually dumb. It was lack of effort, not necessarily lack of talent, if you want to call it that. Right. So we'll see. Hey, TJ, your favorite guest is here.
Hi, Destiny. How are you?
She just wanted to stop by and let you know they play for bowl eligibility on Saturday.
Yes, you do. And I will be watching, or at least tuned in tracking. I try to, because I don't think Southern Miss plays on TV, right? No, not. I'm looking at it now on my other screen.
They're ESPN Plus, I think. Yeah.
Plus, yeah. Yep. I see it right here, ESPN Plus. Okay. But yeah, I'll be checking things out, Miss Destiny.
We do. Yeah, we do have 2 games on national television, and we'll get to those here in a little bit. But let's jump into those midterm grades. Again, this is bare bones graphics. We're going to have the team. We're going to have a picture of myself, picture of TJ, and the grade letter that we're giving to these teams. And we're starting off with the team that is last place in the East, the Georgia State Panthers. TJ, you gave them an F. Please explain.
Yes. First of all, you're 0-3 in conference. 0 in anything is an automatic F. You fail immediately. And I think your D probably only came from their 1 win. I don't want to speak for you, but probably that factors in a little bit of it. But Georgia State has just been – I mean, they're not good. They're not a good football team. They haven't been a good football team they're like the Cleveland Browns of our conference. They can't get right.
True.
And no matter what they do, no matter who they draft, or I guess in this case not draft, no matter who they recruit or try to transfer in, they can't seem to put it together. I don't, and I guess the hard part for them too is that it is really hard for them to recruit their area because, I mean, you've got obviously Georgia, right? You've got Georgia Tech, who looks like a ACC powerhouse this year. You've got other schools like Valdosta State and then Georgia Southern. And then there's so many other kind of smaller schools that are in Georgia that are just better, that a lot of those Atlanta-based kids aren't going there. They're not going to pick Georgia State. And I get it. I understand it. But you've got to be able to recruit your own area, and they don't do that well. And until they do that well, they'll always be bottom dwellers.
Yeah. Hard to disagree with a lot of those points. Ben James saying if Georgia State would start Finley, I think they'd be somewhat better. Well, they have up until this past weekend.
I was going to say they were starting.
Yeah, they've been starting him. Cameron Brown would come in and spell him. Sometimes they would go back and forth between the two. But Cameron Brown got the start, and the entire game took every snap for them at quarterback against Georgia Southern this past week. It still didn't quite work out. But there's that conversation we've had again yet, TJ, right? Like the young quarterback take his lumps and learn, or do you let Finley try and lead with the veteran leadership and all that? So it looks like they're kind of doing both, and maybe they've finally said we're going to go full bore with the young kid and see what he's got up his sleeve. I will explain my decision for the D. I'm with you. They are 0-3 in conference. They are our version of the Cleveland Browns within this conference. That is a great, mirror image of what we want to describe here. However, we talked before we got into this about the expectations, right? We didn't necessarily expect Georgia State to be at the top. Sure. I also didn't hurt them too badly for having 2 SEC teams, 2 ranked SEC teams at that on their schedule. Yes, they didn't look good in either of those games, but there also was no expectation of a victory. The game against Memphis, and you're looking at it now, 38-16, that was one of their better performances, to be totally honest with you. It wasn't real bad with what Memphis has been able to do, and Memphis looked real good until that loss to UAB this past week. Murray State, FCS team, they were a winless one. They won 37-21. Not overly impressive, but look, they got the job done. They got some guys to play in some spots. They held JMU to a 14-7 game there in Atlanta. Looked like it could be a turning point of the season, and then App State came in, and they've still never beaten them. They lost 41-20, almost the exact same score against Southern this past weekend down there in Statesboro. So, again, not good, not going to grade them high, but just maybe not putting them in quite the F category because they've had some performances that have been better, but they've got to get some kind of bigger victory for them to jump up anywhere from a D. For me, and I could have probably even gone like D-, but tried not to be too harsh on the team that's kind of struggling there. Well, not far up from them, Georgia Southern. And what's funny, I also want to say this too. I asked TJ for these, and he actually gave me his before I completed mine. I completed mine throughout the day today. What I told myself is when he sent them to me and I realized that's what he had sent, I said, I'm not looking at his. I'm going to do this the fairest I can do it. I am not going to match any of his on purpose. Obviously, sometimes we will. But I'm going to do this my own way and see what I come up with compared to his. A lot of them are similar, which is crazy. I mean, obviously, that's us talking through it every week and doing this. So I do want to say that some of these are going to be the same. But this one, I started off with a C for Georgia Southern. And part of that is because the expectations, unlike Georgia State, the expectations for Georgia Southern were much greater coming into the season. So again, didn't take it easy. I didn't give anybody easy grades. The Fresno State loss, kind of surprising. USC loss, obviously more expected. And then they've kind of gone a little bit like back and forth a little bit towards the end here, although they did get that most recent victory over Georgia State. They didn't perform well against James Madison. They did kind of come back at the end against Southern Miss, but that was a game where they looked out of it early. So, again, I think they kind of are that team that could jump up and win a game, but they're also the one that's like not performing to where they should, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. And my C- is for those exact same reasons. Fresno State, unexpected loss. Like you said, USC, more expected. And USC is actually turning out to be a much better loss than originally anticipated because they weren't ranked and they weren't a good football team as of last year. So, if there is a good loss, that's one of them. That said, though, I had a little bit higher expectations for Georgia Southern. Saying that, though, my C- is they're right where their record says they are, right? I mean, they're kind of in that average spot. They're 3-4 overall, a little bit below average. Not a great loss to Fresno State. And then, like you said, they've been kind of waffling back and forth, not sure who you're going to get. But so I agree with you on a lot of your points that they just didn't live up to what the preseason expectation was. And I try not to have that weigh too much into it because you also have to, meet somebody where they are. And my average is also part of that is you are, and you're going to hear me reference this a lot, what your record says you are. And right now the record says that they're very much an average football team.
Yeah, exactly. You just can't put them much other places, right? I mean, we both came up with a C. You have a C-, but yeah, I don't think you can just stick them anywhere else. They're really right there in the middle of the pack as a football team overall right now. Okay, this one's a little bit different, right? A little bit closer to this one we are. I'm not taking it easy here just because it's a team that I cheer for, and TJ, this is a team that you played for. So I don't know if you want to start this one out or you want me to start this one out.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start it out. I did for them exactly what I did for my grading system for them was exactly what I used when I graded Georgia Southern, right? So the loss, is it a bad loss? Yeah, absolutely. The loss is. Have you been consistent? No, you have not. Have you kind of won games and then lost games? Have you been in situations where you could have won and then kind of let up on the gas pedal, or maybe turnovers have gotten in the way of some things. And then so I kind of took all of that into account. And then I also took in records, right? So the reason for Georgia Southern's C- is because you're 3-4. App State's 4-3 record gave them a C. They're very much right in the middle of the pack, very much average. You could get an Appalachian State team who doesn't turn the ball over and they can score 45 points on you. Or you can get an Appalachian State team who runs up and down the field, but throws interceptions inside the red zone. So, and then they score 15 points. So it's a matter of what team you're going to get that week. And that played into my grade of giving them a C. You could argue a C-. I'd say D is a little based on record. I'd say that's a little heavy. But I think if you're basing it on expectations, you could go as low as an F if you wanted to.
Yeah, I guess so. There was some people that came into the season a little bit more with a realistic realistic expectation, right? New coach, a tons of roster turnover here, not knowing really what to make. I mean, there was a ton of comments like that on our season previews on the website. I don't know what this team is. I don't know who these guys are. Like, I don't know what to make of what we're going to see. Well, history and tradition tell you something at some of these schools, App State being one of them. That game against Charlotte seemed like it was pretty good starting off. Then Charlotte looks like they're a pretty bad football team, so not overly impressive now. Linwood, FCS team, they win by one score against an FCS team at home.
Right.
They couldn't get the ball into the end zone. I'm going to punish you for that. That's not good. That's a really bad victory if you can have that. Southern Miss could have been competitive, couldn't take care of the ball. Boise State didn't even look like they showed up. Oregon State, they win. It was an exciting finish, but it wasn't a great game, right? 27 points. They allowed 23. They almost lost at the end without the goal line stand. They do lose that game at home, and that looks really bad. Georgia State, they performed one of their better performances of the season and kept that Panther team winless against them. And then Coastal Carolina just this past weekend. You're at home, rebound from that that Boise State loss. You're now looking to get on a 3-game win streak and go into the conference slate with some good results. And you scored a lot of points, but you couldn't stop the other team, and then you lose at home towards the end of the game like that. I'm punishing you. It's a D for me. The performance, the I don't know, like even that little brawl, melee, scuffle, skirmish, whatever you want to call it after that Coastal game, man, it didn't seem to have a lot of, besides like 2 players maybe that were really intense about it. It didn't seem like a lot of them were really upset that they lost that game, and I guess I'm holding that against them.
Yeah, and listen, I don't disagree, and I'm certainly not. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I guess where we differ for me overall, I'm taking record into account, whereas you're taking how they got to that record, and that makes sense. And so the wins weren't great wins, and the losses were bad losses. So I understand, I get it.
Yeah. So there we are. There's the rough and tough one on that. This is one that's kind of surprising to get to this early, I guess, maybe. I mean, just a couple weeks ago, do you look like they could be at the top of this conference? And here they sit kind of in the center as we looked at those standings before this. I went with the B, though. You went with the C. Let's hear what your thoughts are on the Monarchs, and maybe if this probably would have been different a week or two ago.
Yeah, and it would have been different a week or two ago. The problem for me is the losses and how they lost and not being able to finish football games. The other thing, too, for me is my expectation level from last year to this year. We talked about it in our I think it was our preseason opener. We talked about where we thought ODU was going to finish. I thought they would be, 1 or 2, top of the East teams. I thought App State would, probably finish around that 3rd spot, and it'd be JMU and ODU fighting for that first and second place. And they just, while it is kind of that, it's not a good way that they've gotten there. And I'm kind of on your level in terms of the losses and how they lost, and then the wins and the way that they won. It's just not, for me, it's not enough. I don't think ODU deserves a B just because of where I expected them to be versus where they actually are. And again, 4-3 is also very bad.
Yeah, I did waver between the B and the C, to be honest with you. This one was what was tough. I've been saying what even is a Monarch. I bet G. Wills will tell you. And I do want to get to his comment here. B is generous with how the conference slate has gone. Non-con, A-, and that's where their grade picked up for me quite a bit, right?
Okay, that's fair if you're averaging in 2. Yep.
Right. Indiana looks like one of the best teams in the country, and early in the season, they lost that game 27-14. At the time, a couple weeks ago, they were putting up the best numbers and the best result against Indiana out of anybody, pretty much. So that was a very respectable loss, right? I mean, you hate to say that, but that's what it was. Next week, take care of NC Central. Great. Beat up on Virginia Tech. Okay, they're not great. So, 21-7 against Liberty. That's kind of, I actually rewarded them a little bit more for that because that game was in really bad weather, hard to take care of the ball. They should have scored more points and beat them more easily. But the eye test in that one, they were greatly better than that Liberty team. So I didn't harm them too much by only winning 21-7. The Coastal game, they just demolished them. 47-7. And at that point, you thought maybe Coastal's not a good football team, and this ODU team is really good. Well, now we've seen Coastal, they're trending up. They are a better team than what they thought, and ODU had dismantled them. Then they have that game against Marshall, and then unfortunately for them, they have this game against James Madison. I think where I go with the B is, to me, the only bad loss so far on their schedule to me is Marshall. And it's not even necessarily that they lost to Marshall, because that's not to discredit what the Thundering Herd have done, but you got beat 48-24. So that one wasn't even close. I know, again, the eye test, yes, like some turnovers made that score worse than maybe it felt when you watched the game, kind of thing. But look, the final score is 48-24. It was never in doubt there towards the end. And so you got to say that one's bad. James Madison, if you're being a realist before the season starts, you probably think James Madison wins that game. How they won it is the ugly part, and I can see where you go see because of how these last two games have gone. Like that's where I was wavering between the two, but I did want to reward them. I do think they are a very good football team. We didn't see this play, but Colton Joseph almost hit Trey Brown for another touchdown very early in the third quarter to cut it to a one-score game against James Madison. It's literally hit him in the hands. He wouldn't have been touched on his way to the end zone. Just dropped the ball. Just a great wide receiver, just a mishap. Those things happen. But that could have maybe changed the outcome of that game, right? They score again early and keep that thing a little bit closer. But, we'll see. Again, I think ODU still has a very talented team on their hands. I know their fans are a little frustrated. G. Wills specifically hasn't been real happy. I think they really, really wanted this one against James Madison this past weekend, and they didn't get it, unfortunately. All right, I've talked enough. Back to you, TJ. Break us down with your grade for the Marshall Thundering Herd.
Yeah, I gave Marshall a B. I mean, Marshall's been pretty impressive. The Herd Dispatch talking about Marshall coming into its own. Listen, total rebuild. You've got a ton of transfer players that are coming in. You don't know who you're going to get, right? It's one of those things where, like, I think we talked about this beginning of the year. Marshall last year, or at least in years past, have been Jekyll and Hyde, right? Like 1 week you get an amazing performance. The next week is like they lose to, ULM, right? And it's just like, what's happening? And so for me, I think this year they showed a model of consistency, right? Or at least a bit of it for the most part. I think for me, the impressive win, what put them over the top, because I was kind of borderline between C+ and B. And I think what put them over the top for me was the win and how they won against ODU. I think that was the difference for me and what gave them the grade that I gave them.
That makes sense. That was one that I don't think you or I either of us saw coming, right? Like no. Trying to think back to best bets and everything. I don't think we thought maybe at best we thought Marshall would cover something. I don't remember exactly what the spread was, but I don't think we thought Marshall was going to win that game outright. I did correctly predict Marshall coming out on top of Texas State, so just a little toot my own horn there. But yeah, that was a close game. We'll talk about that one. So the obvious loss to Georgia to start the season. The Missouri State one hurt them greatly for me. Okay, this is a team in Missouri State that's coming up from the FCS ranks, their first season in FBS football. This is a game at home after you've gotten thumped by Georgia. And again, no disrespect, because the Georgia game was probably very obvious about what was about to transpire. Even the guys from the Thundercast knew going in it would be a miracle to win that game. And it didn't happen, right? But the Missouri State game, losing at home, the way they did too, because they had chances to win it, and it could have been an ugly win. Instead, it was an ugly loss. So I did harm them a little bit for that. They rebound with a great effort against Eastern Kentucky, take care of business as they should. They get a tough result down there at MTSU, a weird game with the weather splitting it up into two kind of distinct different halves, but they win by double digits easily there. They did lose that game in overtime to Louisiana when Lunch Winfield absolutely went off, but they also scored 51 points themselves in that one. So, that one, I'm not harming them too greatly for that. The ODU game, absolutely amazing. Texas State victory, very impressive. They're holding true to form at home. I'm like you, and Herd Dispatch says it right here. He's probably got bias, but it's been amazing to watch. If TJ, we'll just jump back, right? That helmet behind you there, App State. If App had a season like this, I would be extremely happy. Yes, you got two tough results to start the season, but now you're rolling. I think this Marshall team is getting into their stride and looking dangerous for the rest of the season here.
Yeah, listen, Marshall's going to be it's going to be a tough out for anybody they play the rest of the year. And I think now they've learned who they are. And for their sake, I hope that they continue this, because our conference is good when Marshall is good. And I want Marshall to be good. So the hope is that they continue playing this way.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back, Dave Ashbury, he does great writing for Old Dominion. If you haven't seen his work, he does a lot of stuff specific for them. But he's spelling this out, and I don't know if Ben was just being funny with the monarch comment, but this is interesting, so I'm going to share it anyway. A monarch is a king or queen. ODU started as a William and Mary Norfolk division. I didn't even know that portion.
I had no idea.
And Mary, William and Mary, also a good football team at the FCS level. William and Mary were co-monarchs of Great Britain and started the college in the 1600s. So not only are you getting grades, you're getting schooled here by Mr. Dave Ashbury himself. Yeah. So there you go. All right. Jumping over to Coastal Carolina. Now, I have a surprising grade for this, and Coastal fans are not going to like it. But let's start off with you, TJ, because I think more of the Chants fans are going to like your grade over here for them.
So yeah, the D is extremely surprising. I think we differ a lot here. I'm kind of basing it off a couple things. Now, the win over App State, is it a great win? Who knows, right? We don't know who App State is, and to App State's defense, I don't want to pour and pile on, right? This is that coaching staff's first year. There are going to be some growing pains. We have to be patient with who they are. So, is it a good win? Sure, it's a good win, based on, whatever it is in terms of conference play. But, the rest of the season and how it's played out, I think they've been good enough in some instances, and their losses haven't been awful, in my opinion. So that's the reason I graded them the way that I did. I think they've got a couple of bright spots during the season. I think and too, from an expectation standpoint, I didn't expect them to be great this year. So where they are is not necessarily where, how they finished last year. So that's kind of all of that went into the way I graded them.
That makes sense. And that probably should have played a bigger factor into me, because I also did not think Coastal Carolina was going to be great this season. Probably could have gone with the C here. I went with the D. That's why you heard TJ's reaction like that, because he's got the B. And I think after this last week, a lot of Chants fans are probably thinking along those lines. But to be honest, I just haven't seen a lot of stuff that's been overly impressive. A lot of people are thinking about this most recent victory over App State and kind of the rivalry that is that. But they started off the year with a terrible result against Virginia, 48-7. So really didn't compete in that one. They won against an FCS team the next week at home, only 13-0. So the shutout on the defense looks good. 13 points for the offense against an FCS opponent. I think most of those were field goals, if I remember correctly. ECU, they get shut out at home, 38-0. And we've seen ECU, they look like maybe early in the season they were kind of getting back to their old form, but they're not great this year. And you got shut out at home by that team. They went down to South Alabama and Mobile and surprised me, 138-20. Okay, I'm going to give you credit there. South Alabama is kind of that team that you don't know what they're going to do, capable of beating some teams and competing, but not really coming across with a lot of victories yet this year. Old Dominion, again, didn't compete, 47-7. Monroe, they win 23-8. ULM, not looking great on the season, not getting a whole lot of extra points for that victory. Almost the same type of thing with App State. Yes, you won that game. You gave up 37 points to that team, and App State really isn't great this year. So I graded harshly, but it probably could have gone with a C based off, like you said, TJ, that expectation versus where they're at. They're also sitting at second place in the East. So when you see that D, people probably asking me what the heck I'm thinking about. And Zach is asking me if I'm still salty after last week. No, I did what TJ did. I tried to take any bias out. I had a math equation that I was running, and I know it's not the most official thing, but I put a letter grade scale and a number grade scale together, and then I went through each and every game. That's why I'm kind of explaining it that way on the way through to kind of keep myself fair. And then I took that number and I didn't just stay hard and heavy with that number. There was also some personal stuff that, eye test and all that stuff is gone along with it. I just don't think that Coastal offense is great. We heard people talking about firing Tim Beck before this victory against App State. Does all of that change just because of one victory? To me, it doesn't, right? So to me, that's where I went with the harsh grade letter with the D there. So we'll see. But that's where I went with them. JMU, I don't think this is going to be a surprise for anyone. I've got A- though. TJ, you went with a straight A. Were you any closer to putting in like an A+, or was that A going to be good enough for you?
A is going to be good enough for me. A+ to me, A+ means perfect, and they are not that. No team in our conference is perfect, and it's fine, right? I don't expect perfection. JMU is not going to be the same JMU that they were, a couple of years back. Back when they had what's his name, Mr. Google Me, but which, by the way, Indiana looks outstanding. I mean, they look light years ahead of where I thought they were going to be, and kudos to him. And I love his swag, I love his bravado. Anyway, all of that it's right up my alley. But yeah, I mean, it's par for the course for JMU. I mean, they've been consistent, they've been winning, and quite frankly, I don't see them, stopping that trend anytime soon. So that's what led to my A, almost an A+, despite, minus the one win. But other than that, yeah, I mean, they're flying high.
Yeah, I went A-. Sorry, I would have gone A+ if they'd beaten Louisville, right? That is a pretty good Louisville team. Had they done that on the road early in the season like that, would have been an A+ for me because they haven't lost any other games, right? I went A- and not an A because they did lose the game to Louisville, but also that ugly win against Georgia State, just 14-7. So there's some discrepancies. The win against Louisiana was better at 24-14, but again, I'm trying to just kind of gauge it. I'm grading tough, right? That's what I said with Coastal. I graded JMU tough because, again, history and tradition tell you that this team expects to be winless. I mean, undefeated at this point, right? So they've still got a chance to do great things, but I went with an A- just because, again, grading harshly. And I think that they'd respect that because they expect to be up there at the very top. So give us something to work towards. That's what we did there. South Alabama, jumping back over to the other side. F, TJ, you got them down at the very bottom, so F makes sense, right? Go ahead and explain why is that.
Listen, they won against Morgan State, and then that's it. Okay, you've lost to everybody. You've lost to Tulane, which Tulane, pretty good team. I'm not gonna. Then they played them tough, 31-32, or excuse me, 31-33. So they played Tulane tough. Tulane's, perennially a really good football team, and so I don't hate you for that. They played tough against Auburn, right? They 31-15, not too bad, right? Not an awful football game. But then you lose by 18 to Coastal, right? North Texas almost puts 40 on you. Troy beats you. Troy scores 30, and then Arkansas State, albeit a close game, is still a loss. And I can't for the life of me figure out. And part of this is record. And then the other part of this for me is expectations. Where did I expect you to be? Now, again, you lose your starting quarterback to Bill Belichick. I get it. No. I mean, I understand that part. But it's plug and play, right? And I didn't expect this sort of precipitous drop-off from South Alabama, and it has been, quite honestly, horrendous. Their teams are scoring 30 on them at will. I think, actually, the only team who did not score 30 on them was Arkansas State. So
I just like the fact that you just used the word precipitous. There's the high school nerd coming out, TJ.
That is true. But listen, it was bad. It has been bad. It's continuing to be bad. To me, them and Georgia State are kind of right there in the same. Now, again, do I think South Alabama is going to stay there next year? My guess is probably not. But right now, you got to call a spade a spade.
Yeah, that'll also be the first and last time the word precipitous is likely used on this podcast because I'm going to have to go define that one after we get off the call here. But yeah, no, I probably, once again, kind of like the Coastal grade, could I have changed this and gone with a D? Probably would have made more sense. what I was doing was rewarding what I've seen via the eye test. Like you said, the only win is against FCS Morgan State. It wasn't even a blowout victory, right? It was 38-21. So, but again, first game of the season, I'm not going to grade too harshly on that single victory there. Tulane, like you said, competed. Auburn competed. Coastal, don't know what happened in that one. Just an awful game for them all the way around. So that was the biggest bad grade that they got from me in this. North Texas, like you said, almost scored 40, but we reviewed that onside kick that wasn't, right? So like
That's
they
fair.
were close in that one. They were close in that one, and I also graded not so harshly there because North Texas at that point was an undefeated team, looking pretty good. So I thought the performance was pretty good. The Troy game, that's a loss, not a great one, but Troy's been pretty good, and that's a rivalry game. So again, I didn't grade them too harshly on the loss because it was competitive. Arkansas State, again, a loss, not good, but again, competitive. They were up going into the fourth quarter by 12 points. Arkansas State came back and scored all their other points late in that fourth quarter to win that one. So to me, it's probably a very I don't know how to say it, but it's maybe a lofty C. Like they're not really there, but they could be because they have been. I don't think this is one of those teams that I think a lot of people are going to see on the schedule and say 1-6, we're going to wipe the floor with them. But that's kind of where I'm getting the C from is like, I don't think that's what this team is when you go and compete against them on the field on any given night. But we've got Sam talking some junk. Ben saying, I say Applewhite might get fired after the season. And that's a possibility, right? It depends on the expectations from the higher ups on what they thought this season would bring. I didn't think South Alabama was going to be overly amazing this year. I did like Bishop Davenport as a quarterback. I think he can get it done. Zach wants a D- for the Jags. That's probably very fair, I would say. For that one, Artie Katz giving big props to Major Applewhite. He's done things for the Jags with limited resources, which is true. They are one of those teams that doesn't have as much money as some of the other teams at the top of this conference. So there is that Jag Nation Radio joining the show saying, I hope we lose. They've got the game Thursday coming up that we'll talk about against Georgia State. So we'll see if they do lose in that one. Unfortunately, it's not like the NFL. You don't lose and get the highest draft pick anymore, right? Like that would be a decent reason to lose. But speaking of losing, Artie's favorite team has been doing a good bit of that lately. I've got Texas State with a C-. TJ, you've got them with a D. What are we thinking with Bobcats?
Yeah, it's for me, the D came from lack of defense. They have been letting teams score almost at will. I mean, I'm looking at it right now. Eastern Michigan put up 27, respectable, not terrible. Then UTSA scores 36 on them. They win, right? Texas State still wins, but they're getting 36 scored on them, right? And then these past 3 weeks, 30 from Arkansas State, who, by the way, we just talked about only scored 15 against South Alabama. So 30 against Arkansas State. Troy put 48 on them. And then Marshall put 40 on them. So it's like, what in the world is going on? I mean, these last couple of weeks, defense has been deplorable. I didn't give them an F based on record because they have won 3 games. And quite honestly, based on my prior grading system, a 3-4 record should be a C- based on, where you are and where you sit and how the level of average that means. I gave them a D just because not only are they 3-4, but also the expectation that I had. So again, 2 parts, right? Where you are currently is what's factored in. And then also where you were projected to be based on last year and where I thought you might be. So 2 things factored in for this grade. Defense has been just absolutely awful these last 3 weeks.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Destiny has a great point about the worst team. Worst team in the conference is rewarded with the coach of the championship team if tradition holds, which is really great. Throwing it back to the fact that Southern Miss got to take Marshall's coach, worst team, best coach. Yeah. Anyway, I thought that was a pretty good thing. Artie says they were out-coached once again. It's like you said, it's really the defense just not at all living up to expectation. Offensively, they've been scoring enough points that they could win. I think that's kind of one of the points you've, maybe not said exactly the same way. But obviously, they've been competitive. Just like I graded South Alabama, Texas State, a couple bounces in these last 3 games go a different way, and now they've won 3 straight. Or if you add the Nichols game in there, they've won 4 straight. So again,
Right.
by the eye test, I still think Texas State is a very talented football team. You're going to look at that record and say, man, we should beat this team. But I don't know, look a little closer, and that's why I went with the C-. And the C- really is probably the minus because of the expectation. They were expected to be at the top of this conference on the west side at the very least. So yeah, that's where we go with that tough stuff to get it graded and figured out here. Artie Cat says fake punt lost the game in that last one. Yeah, it definitely didn't. You pull that out, looks great. Not pulling it out obviously is going to be something that everyone's going to be able to point to very easily. TJ O'Sullivan jumping on for a comment. Just completely unexpected season for Texas State. Really saw them competing for the West in the preseason, as I think most people did. Really, Texas State definitely thought that, and I think as Sam Talking Sports talked about earlier, the Pac-12 maybe trying to schedule them for homecoming because of what they're seeing on the field against them. So yeah, that would not be a great thing, but kind of makes sense. At the same time, Ben saying A-State literally called a play. I'm not sure exactly what that's trying to say, actually. But
speaking of homecomings, we were – quick funny story. My sophomore year in high school, we were so bad at football. We were 5 teams homecoming game that season. 5 teams booked us for homecoming.
Did you win any of them?
No. We were 0 for my sophomore year. We lost. As a matter of fact, the only game we did win my sophomore year, they at the end of the year had to come back and award us a game because Swansboro. I don't know how familiar you are with the eastern side of North Carolina, but Swansboro High School had a kid that was ineligible. He was 19 years old. He was ineligible playing with them on their football team. That's the only win we got because of a forced forfeit. We were bad. We were awful.
That's so funny. And that explains why you were in that article named like the best kept secret in high school football in North Carolina, because you were hidden away on a team that, well, I think by the time you were performing, your team was better though, right?
Right, yeah. When that article came out, it was based on the year prior. The article was based on my junior year, which we weren't good then. I think we only won like 4 games my junior year. And then my senior year, we went almost undefeated and then lost in the semifinals. And I think that was when the beginning of that season was when that article came out, but it was based on my junior year season.
Gotcha. Okay.
So we were not homecoming games. We were not good.
Yeah. TJ's asking if we remember a couple weeks ago on the show, and we were talking about an ODU Texas State Sun Belt title game. Yeah. Yikes! It is right. That's not looking like a thing that's going to happen here. As we jump back in, we're going to the Ragin' Cajuns. Very similar scores here, or grades, but we do differ just slightly. I've got a D+. You have a D- for the Cajuns, TJ. What are you seeing with our friends down there in Lafayette?
Yeah. So for me, it's not so much the losses, it's how Missouri, again, notwithstanding, they lost, it was 52 points. Missouri's a pretty good football team. And right now, I think they're ranked even higher than they were coming into the season. They lost to Rice. It was barely lost, and they beat McNeese State. Who cares? And then after that, Eastern Michigan, who, for all intents and purposes, can score the football, right? But they scored 31 points. They went against Marshall, but Marshall scores 51. James Madison scores 24, and then Southern Miss beats them 22-10. It's like they can't, outside of a few times this year, 12 points on offense, 10 points on offense, 10 points on offense, and then they get a 34, and they get a 54, and then it's 14, 10. It's like, who are you on offense? Like, you can't, apart from. So it's kind of like flips on its head from what Texas State was when we were talking about they don't have any defense. The Cajuns can't find their offense, and certainly can't find it consistently. And the 2 wins that they've had, they've put up over 30 points. But everything else has been, not even in the 20s. And it's like, what is going on?
Yeah. Yeah, and you went through most of the schedule there, which I love. That way it saves it for me just to not have to do. But my other aspect of this, and I'm sure it was for you too, is expectation, right? They
Sure,
came into
yeah.
the season as like, hey, this team is going to run the West, right? Until they get dethroned, this team is the team to beat over there, and we haven't seen it. Now, to be fair in some regard, and maybe this could have changed other people's grades if they were doing it, there has been a lot of injuries, right? Walker Howard came into the season as the starter, and he's only seen a few games because of injury, and really he hasn't even gotten the vast majority of those 2 games that he's really appeared in, because he did come in this past week against Southern Miss towards the end. I think he was like 2 for 4 with an interception, no touchdowns, very few yardage because he didn't get a ton of time there. But he came in to spell Lunch because Lunch wasn't having a great game in this one against Southern Miss, but also credit to Southern Miss's defense because that's not an easy one to get by. D+, yeah, I mean, as much as I hate to say it because they're both losses, I still think they did compete with the health of the team and the fact they don't have their true number one that they started the season off with against 2 teams that are literally at the top of the conference right now, again in JMU and Southern Miss. So, I still think this Cajun team is dangerous. But right now, with expectation, only 2 wins on the year, I had to go D+, and I don't totally disagree at all with TJ going all the way to D- on this one right here. TJ O'Sullivan jumping in. I want to give Cajuns a break because they lose QB1 again. Yep. Sampson, who will return this week. Sampson is the transfer from LSU, so they will get back their number 1 wide receiver, at least on paper. 2 of the highest Sun Belt Conference transfers as those 2 were coming in. With both them on the field, they lost to Rice to open the year. And again, Walker Howard did not complete that full game. So it's just kind of weird that what has transpired with the Cajuns on the field, and we'll see how that continues for them. And Lunch was getting his lunch.
I thought about saying that, but then I was like, nah, I'm not going to do it.
Failure to lunch. Oh, he's got all the puns.
I was so going to go there, but I was like, nah, not the dad. I'm not going to do the dad thing tonight. I'm glad somebody did it though.
Not going to do the dad jokes. Well, we've got Sam to do them for us. We'll now jump into the other Louisiana team. And right now it's still other because until next season, at the very least, maybe 2 seasons from now, that third team in La Tech jumps in. But right now, just 2 teams remain in Louisiana for the Sun Belt. We both came up with the exact same score here, C-. I don't think anything crazy here, right? I mean, had some ones that were known.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, St. Francis, whatever, right? But their 2 wins, UTEP and Arkansas State, were fairly impressive wins. They lost to Northwestern. They lost to Coastal, lost to Troy, and I'm not even talking about Alabama. They haven't had. It's not been like the teams they lost to are good teams, right? Northwestern's,
right.
Big Ten team. They lost to Alabama, Big Ten team. Okay, fine. But Coastal and Troy, good football teams, right? Really good football teams. So, those I threw the P5 or P4. I keep wanting to say P5. The P4, I threw those losses out, and then I strictly graded them on the rest of how. And if you take those losses out, it's a winning record, right? Now, again, you can't take those losses out. And when you talk about rankings and all those things, that's what gave me the C-. I think that they are a team that's on the way up. They're just not ready yet.
Yeah, and I think they were kind of there last year, but maybe people thought they might kind of take that next step this year. And obviously, like you just kind of said, they just haven't really done that. They kind of got those victories maybe they should have had. And UTEP and Arkansas State, definitely their best 2 victories. St. Francis was a shutout early in the season, but not necessarily surprising the FCS opponent like that. The one that surprises me probably the most is the Coastal loss, 23-8. And the reason it surprises me is because the weather in that game played what I thought would be played better into the advantage of the game that ULM plays, the style, keep it on the ground, great defense. Go ahead and not let us throw the ball. We're fine with that at ULM.
Right.
We'll just run it down your throats, control the clock, and we'll stop you on defense. So that Coastal game was, to me, the most surprising. But again, that's maybe where Coastal's jumping up, and maybe it was a little harsh on the grade there. But we both have C- there for ULM at this point. Artie Cat saying, watch Locked On Sunbelt for Dave's interview with ULM ex athletic director. Yeah, I watched a little bit of that. I didn't get to finish it today, but it did look like it was going to be a pretty good interview. Definitely want to hear his thoughts on leaving ULM. TJ's very happy that we talk so highly about his chance, but I have no clue how this is happening in Conway right now. Yeah, you missed my grade earlier, TJ, because that was a D for you guys.
Yeah,
so
and
I still went harsh.
I understand where you got that from, but just so you're aware, I gave him a B.
It's not coastal hate. It's not coastal hate. We were jump on the coastal bandwagon all summer with the baseball, so it's not the hate. It's just being tough with the grades here, which maybe I wasn't harsh enough at all with Arkansas State. I gave them a B-. You went with a C. Explain your thoughts on the Red Wolves.
Yeah, again, Iowa State lost, not too bad. But and Arkansas, again, those two thrown out, right? Because who they are, the teams they represent. Like Arkansas State is just not better yet. Or good enough to sort of withstand those. Then they beat South Alabama, which turns out to not be a great win, but a win is a win. They beat Texas State. They scored 30 points. The losses that they have now, Kennesaw State, I've been watching Kennesaw State a little bit this year. Kennesaw State actually looks like a really decent football. Are they world beaters? No. But they are a really good football team, and they've got a really strong offense. Is it a loss? Yes. Is there such thing as a good loss? Who knows? Depends on who you ask, I guess. But if there is one, that's probably one of the ones that I would say was a good loss. The one bad loss that they have for me, and I don't even know if you can count this as a bad loss, is Monroe, right? And that's only because ULM isn't the team that they want to be yet, but they're getting there. And we just gave them, I think I gave them what did I give ULM?
A C-.
C-. So I gave ULM a C-. Gave Arkansas State a C. I think they're both right in that mix in terms of teams that are just sitting at average and just waiting for that spark to be better.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. The reason I probably went B- here is I see, again, the eye test sometimes has led me to think that this team could be better than their record shows. That I didn't harm them too much for losing against Arkansas or Iowa State. Coming into the season, didn't necessarily expect them to win either one of those games. The only hope was Iowa State at home, right? And that did end up being a very close game. So again, they have the potential to get some big victories here. Kennesaw State, we know where that quarterback came from, transfer from Georgia Southern last year. So we know what he's capable of. That was a tough one to lose on the road, just a one-score game there. And now they're trending upward again. They beat Texas State. They beat South Alabama. South Alabama was kind of an ugly victory if you go back and look at it. But yeah, I think this team has got the pieces to be pretty good. And I think they have kind of the schedule that lays out the rest of the way. That obviously wasn't a thought process in the grade. But if you look at who they've got left, they got a down Georgia Southern team. They got Troy at Troy, which is going to be their toughest, possibly their toughest one if you give a little bit of extra credence to the fact that there's a team playing at home, because they do get Southern Miss at home in Jonesboro. So, that's not necessarily easy 2-game stretch there, but at least they get one of the two at home. They play Louisiana, who looks a little bit down, and they play at App State to finish the year, who also looks a little bit down. So, again, the grade doesn't go in with the rest of the schedule, but I think this B- might look closer. Or in TJ maybe go to like a C+ or a B- if they get through more of this schedule like they could.
Yeah,
but,
I agree.
And Ben is saying the slow start hurt them, and that's certainly a good aspect to that. And Artie's saying the logo is a loss. So it's time to remake it. Yeah, that's definitely something there. I actually kind of like that logo, but I could see why people maybe don't like it.
It's very plain.
Yeah, it is. It is a little bit that. I'm confused about like the part that from the eye that goes out. Like, what is that part about?
Right.
But Mr. O'Sullivan would like to cancel me because I gave App and Coastal a D. Well, I mean that game was almost an overtime game. It came down to the last play, so those two teams are equal. They both got Ds. It's fair.
Yeah, it's short. I disagree.
Yeah. DJ wants to know if it was the flag planting. No, but that was a fun thing. I thought I had fun with that all week. We got a lot of views on that thing. A lot of people didn't think it was a brawl, but I don't really know how else you explain that. So, yeah, we'll see. All right, going back into this. Troy, I've got B+, you've got A-. Thoughts on the Trojans? You're really impressed with them so far this year.
Yeah, I mean the wins are pretty good wins. I mean their losses, they lost to Memphis 28-7. I think they could have and should have put up a little bit better of a fight against Memphis. But obviously, you lose to Clemson, which turns out Clemson's not who we thought Clemson was going to be. So that's a whole other thing in itself. But they were ranked, 8 when they played them, and they did beat them, or they were beating them 10-0 at halftime. So for what that's worth, that says a lot to me. But the wins were great. I mean, they scored 37 against Monroe, 48 against Texas State, 31 against South Alabama, 21 against Buffalo, and then another 38 against Nichols, which, I mean, whatever, that's Nichols. But still, they're scoring points, and their defense, albeit, Texas notwithstanding, or Texas State notwithstanding, has played fairly well, holding teams to at or right at or under 20 points. Again, minus Clemson and Memphis. So that factored into my grade. I gave them an A- because of the losses, but the losses aren't the type of losses that punishes you that much, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the only thing is you could say, you kind of let that Clemson game slip away a little bit. I mean, obviously.
Did they, though? Because Clemson, listen, eventually, and we talk about this a lot, eventually your athletes are going to athlete, right? And there's only so much you can do from a recruiting perspective that sometimes a team is just more athletic and just better than you. And that's okay. And I think Clemson kind of woke up in that second half and was like, hey, man, wait a minute. We're 2 and 3 deep at every position. There should be no reason why we don't score 30, 40, 50 points in this game. But we're going to go hang 27 on them in a half. And that's what they did.
Yeah, that's true. It's just, you saw how well they were playing, and then they didn't play quite up to par. But there was some stuff that they kind of tried that maybe got out of what they were doing that was working in that first half. And obviously, like you said, talent overcame there with the Clemson roster. I did harm them a little bit in that Memphis game, 28-7. They just really got run all over with that running quarterback from Memphis in a game when you just had a real great shot at beating a team like Clemson, and then you return home. Didn't they lose their quarterback? They did. They did. And that's what I thought. Who was it? Warren did make that.
Barrett. Oh, yeah, I didn't even see that. Okay, yeah. So, okay, that makes sense. I was going to say I didn't see that, but I did see that and I think it was in the first quarter. Yeah, first. Okay, I got to read the whole comment. First quarter they lost their quarterback.
Yeah, and that's Goose Crowder, and he is expected to return at some point this season. But Tucker Kilkers has come on and been really strong for them. Not as good of a thrower, I'd say, but as I think it was Barry or maybe it was Warren again. One of them alluded to how well of a runner he has become and is a threat for them, and that's working really well. But again, Troy, when they've won this conference, they were really strong defensively, and that's been a strong aspect, like you said, the Texas State game kind of notwithstanding. Although, again, I graded Texas State pretty high, even with all those losses, because I think they have a very talented offense. It's the defense over there at Texas State that's not getting it done. On the opposite side, the Troy defense seems to be getting it done quite well. Again, not one game notwithstanding. Hey, another team that's not really a surprise, right? The teams at the top are getting in the A's. I've got an A- for Southern.
I need Destiny to come to the front of the congregation. I need her to come to the front of the congregation, please.
She's probably not going to be happy because we graded them high. She doesn't love praise because she wants disrespect to fuel them. I think that's what she thinks, or it's going to jinx them, something like that. But start us off, TJ. A+, an A+. See, I told you, I don't like this.
Listen, look, I gave them an A+ because, okay, I'm going to go back and I'm looking at their record, right? And two things are factoring in for me when I look at. Number one, first of all, 5-2, Mississippi State. I'm throwing that loss out. Louisiana Tech, was it a bad loss? Sure, it was a bad loss, but is Louisiana Tech getting better? Absolutely. Then you look at the wins. Jackson State, don't really care about that as much. They beat an App State team. They beat a Jacksonville State team who Jacksonville State, I don't know if you've been watching lately, but Jacksonville State has been kind of on a rise, and I think they're on a 2 or 3 game win streak as it sits right now. Georgia Southern, they scored 35 points against or let them score 35 points. But then Louisiana, they come back and they hold them to 10 points. So listen, there's 2 things working here for me. And it's the same scale that I graded the other teams on. It's expectation versus overall output. Right now, you're 5-2. I expected you to be 2-5, to be quite honest. So those are the things that I have working. I'm giving you an A+ because now that could change. We don't know the schedule, how it's going to work out. I mean, you could lay an egg against Arkansas State and Texas State, who, by the way, Texas State has a prolific offense we just talked about. And then, but are you going to be able to score points? So that'll work itself out. But as it sits right now, in terms of midterm grades, I think based on expectation, Southern Miss is playing the best football in our conference based on where we thought they were going to be. So, Destiny, you're welcome.
She says, yes, this is a jinx and I hate it. I'll lean on her comment here. The loss to La Tech should make us an A-. That was actually exactly what had me drop them to an A-. Is you lost that game, and I know it's a heated rivalry and the history between the two, but like that one at that point with what you've done so far to that point of that season, I thought you were going to go in there and win that one, and you didn't. So that was why it's A-. But again, you've only got 2 losses all season, one of them to an SEC team. And I thought that one against Mississippi State was fairly decent. This is the first game of a new regime with new players. Chemistry was going to be hard to come by. So I really didn't harm them too much for that first season, opening season loss. As Destiny might remember, I jinxed that one because I said Southern Miss was going to win that game because I just thought, the factor of surprise with the new coaching staff and players that they don't have quite as much film on is certainly not film as Southern Miss Golden Eagles. So it'll be interesting to see, how that continues to go for them, but that didn't work out for me in my first game of the season prediction. And then Artie says this Southern Miss home game honors its convicted governors behind bars. So if they win, Southern Miss pledges to fill a 5-gallon bucket-sized pothole in the state capital of Jackson.
That's funny.
Deep cut there, Artie. Deep cut.
Jeez.
I don't know what Ben is grading harsher than me. He said he would give Southern Miss a C+. What do you see in there, Ben? I don't know.
Strongly
I
disagree.
don't get that. We'll jump over here to this because Sam's Talk Sports got a question here. If it comes down to the Sun Belt champion, JMU or Southern Miss, a 2-loss AAC champion in Memphis or maybe North Texas, or a 2-loss Mountain West champ, Boise State, who gets the CFP spot? I think that's an easy answer for me, and it's not because I want it to be true, but I don't know. Actually, wait, you're saying 2 losses to an AAC champion. I think you're looking at JMU team then, or Southern Miss team, but I think you're looking at JMU.
If all are 2-loss teams, then JMU, they're going to give the nod to JMU based on history. That's what I think. Yep. I think they'll get in based on history and then based on Signetti and what he was able to do with them in years back. I think they'll win. I think they'll win the spot just based on because that's the way that they think, right? Like they've come into a conference, Sun Belt Conference that they weren't a part of, coming from an a Division I AA or whatever it is called, FBS or FCS. I'm sorry. And into a conference now that they were new to and really have kind of dominated or at least been present at every single time that they've, that it's been coming down to the wire. So I think they'll be rewarded based on that. Boise State, though, I wouldn't be surprised if they gave it the nod to Boise State. But my guess would be JMU.
Yeah, I think you say how harshly you're grading that first game loss against South Florida and then the beating they took at Notre Dame. Notre Dame looks good. South Florida looks
say,
great. I think if South Florida's to lose at this point.
Yeah, but South Florida beat Florida.
South Florida beat Florida, right? And then they lost to Miami, I think is the team that they lost to.
Right.
Well, here, let me put that back up here. There's another aspect to this that could be interesting. It's probably very unlikely to happen, but the group of 5 or whatever you want to call us now is not guaranteed one spot. This is the 12-team playoff. Sure. It's possible that South Florida and one of these other teams can get in. Again, I think it's unlikely, but it is possible. So, if JMU does not lose any more games and they're a one-loss team to a team in Louisville, and Louisville goes on to at least make the ACC conference championship or something, you're looking at a strong resume. And obviously, South Florida would have a strong resume if they don't lose any more games. You're talking about 2 one-loss teams. Again, probably only one of the 2 gets in. But if you've got enough other 2 and 3 lost teams, what was that?
I said I think Louisville would need to win out, though.
Yeah, you would have to. Yeah, they would still have to do very well. Like I said, maybe at least get that ACC championship game, if not win it. You're right. That would really strengthen that resume and that argument or discussion that would need to be had. But it's not just a one spot for the G5. That's not true. It's not just one spot. It can be 4 or 5. That will never happen. But technically, it's made out to be the best teams, not just one of our best teams. And TJ wants to give himself a little credit here. This is the O'Sullivan TJ. He says, if I remember correctly, a certain Syndicate host made the claim that Southern Miss could very well go full 180 this year and win the West. I wonder who that was. Well, that was probably you, Mr. O'Sullivan.
Hey, good call.
Yeah. Barry's saying Southern Miss versus Troy last week of the season to decide who wins the West. That would be a great one. Sam wants to know who has got the more favorable schedule to close out the season between Troy and Southern Miss. So Southern Miss closes out with ULM, Arkansas State, Texas State, South Alabama, and then Troy. I will look up Troy now. I think that's going to be Southern Miss as well. Let's see. Troy's is pulling up right now. I think it's pulling up right now. There we go. Louisiana, Arkansas State, Old Dominion, Georgia State, Southern Miss. That's not terribly different.
That's not
different from the other
Louisiana.
one,
what was the second team you said? Louisiana,
Arkansas State.
Okay, and then Georgia State, and then
I'm gonna say Southern Miss because Arkansas State is on the road. South Alabama's on the road. They get Troy at home, Texas State at home. Meanwhile, Troy would have to go on the road to ODU and on the road to Southern Miss. So I'm going to lean with Southern Miss as the answer there about more favorable than Troy. I don't know if most will agree with that or not. Destiny saying the ball-knowing TJ has spoken.
that if I don't know anything else, one thing I do know is ball.
Yeah, there you go. She's giving you more credit. You're welcome. I'm not thanking you for your greatest errors at the start of the season, TJ.
Listen, I'm trying to bounce back. Listen, I'm trying to get in your good graces. Throw me a bone.
Yeah. Yeah. Artie agrees with us. JMU easy if it were to come down to a bunch of 2-loss teams. Ben James it's tough on these teams, man. USF is very decent, he says. I would say a little stronger than that. Destiny saying if they don't sleepwalk through that La Tech game, conversation is different, and that's probably true. Artie Cat thinks South Florida could lose another game, which
that's fair. That's fair because they've got can't remember their schedule, but I think they've already beaten Central Florida, and they've got I forgot.
They have Army or Navy because those aren't easy teams.
Now I got to go look. Oh, let's see.
Sam thinks South Florida. Whoops. Memphis. USF beat Boise and North Texas is what Mr. O'Sullivan has let us know. But Memphis just lost to UAB, which is a great point. The ACC can collapse on itself, and we've seen it happen before.
Yep.
Look no further than the year Florida State went unbeaten, right? Did they go undefeated and still not make the playoff, or did they have one loss that year?
I can't remember, but I do have South Florida's schedule pulled up. They've got Memphis tomorrow or Saturday. They got UTSA. They'll probably win. They'll probably beat Memphis. They got UAB. That'll probably be fairly tough. Then they've got Navy. I think the only slip up I see could potentially be Navy. And then they've got Rice to close it out. So I think Navy's the only one, in my opinion, that they could potentially lose. And if that's the case, I don't know if they. I mean, it'd be tough to put them in with 2 losses. But the only other loss would be Miami, and Miami's ranked 9th in the country, so not a bad loss. I don't know, and Florida's turning out to be a pretty decent loss. Yeah. Anyway, this isn't about them. I just wanted to pull that up.
Yeah, and O'Sullivan's agreeing with you. Even with 10-2, though, honestly, think they would win out in the end. Sam's leaving us to go show prep for his show, and he's a Boise State fan, if no one caught on to that. So if you're interested in Boise, go check him out. He does great stuff over there. We were guest on his show earlier this season as the App State and Boise State matchup did not live up to expectations, but was kind of the big one going in. Barry says he'd put his money on Tulane making the playoff, which is definitely up there for consideration as well. All right, but we want to get back in, round this out. We're going to go through it fast. Games of the week. I have one for us here. It's not even the strongest matchup of all time, but Georgia Southern is traveling to Jonesboro to play Arkansas State. The all-time series in this one helped me decide that this was the game of the week, as it's tied 3-3 games. So a little bit more background there on why I've picked this one as the game of the week. I don't know really what to make of it, though. Neither one of these teams are winning overly impressive games, right? They're kind of having to come back or really come back is really what they've both done, right? Arkansas State's come back to win some games very late. Georgia Southern almost came back on Southern Miss 2 weeks ago. They turned it on in the fourth quarter to run away from Georgia State, but a close game with them up until that last quarter of the game. You have thoughts on who's taking this one home this weekend?
Honestly, no. I was thinking while you were talking, I think I would give the edge to Arkansas State just because they are at home. Georgia Southern, traditionally traveling out west, has not been great for them. And so if we're going based off that, I mean, home team usually gets at least a +3. So my guess is Arkansas State, but I wouldn't put my house on it.
Yeah, that's kind of how I am. I don't know. We'll get to best bets, see if we put anything on this. I don't think either of us did, though. But, this one – but again, that's kind of what's leading me to think this might be one of those better games of the weekend with what's going on. Maybe not the best teams, right? That's not what we're saying. We're saying what might get us the best game. That's why we're kind of leaning on this one for this weekend. Here's the teams that better win, or do it, lady, as Chit likes to say. ULM versus Southern Miss. I think, TJ, would you agree with both of these that Southern Miss and Troy should both beat on the Louisiana teams here a little bit?
Yeah, I think this is going to be, I don't want to say fairly easy because no team in the conference is ever easy. Any given Saturday, anybody could have a slip up, or Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday for that matter. However, if I had to bet money, I'm certainly picking Southern Miss and Troy based on what I've seen all year, based on the quarterback play, based on the offense, and based on the fact that the Cajuns can't score the ball. And ULM has been letting people walk all over them from a scoring perspective. Again, they are trending upwards, but they're not there yet and not ready. So I'm taking Southern Miss and Troy.
Yeah, same here for me. Again, we're going through these a little faster because we spent so much time on the grades. A lot of people like that part, so we leaned on that a little heavier. Rounding it out, now this is a game here with App State ODU that is going to be on ESPNU. It was elevated before ODU has suffered these last 2 losses, so it's interesting that it's going to end up on national television. The other one on national television is between 2 1-6 teams on Thursday night as South Alabama travels to Atlanta to play Georgia State at 7:30 on ESPN2. But these two games now are just not that exciting, right? Like, I don't know. Is there anything that you're kind of leaning on for either one of these two games?
Other than the fact that App State better win. I mean, listen, something's got to happen. Something has got to happen. This has been moribund season, to say the least. I'm not. Again, let me take some of that back. Not necessarily moribund. We got to give them grace, right? I said that at the beginning. I said that at the beginning of the year. Got to give these teams grace. They've total new coaching staff, new players, a lot of new stuff, but we need to start trending in the right direction. And I think based on what ODU has shown us, they are a gettable team, if you will. And so I think it is winnable. Do I think we will win? Who knows? I think we can win, and that's for sure. As far as the Georgia State and South Alabama game, I gave both of them F grades. So it's a battle of the Fs to me. I don't care. I don't care who wins. It's one of those, like, it's so bad that it could be a good game.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, it could be. It could be. And to say that SportsCenter will be there, I think it's going to be on the air from Atlanta from like 2 to 3 in the afternoon. Yep. So if you've got nothing to do at work, check that out. Maybe that'll bring something that we need to watch there for this one. Destiny saying real sickos will be watching South Alabama versus Georgia State. We will. Yeah, we will definitely be watching that. Battle of Mid would be too kind a name.
That is a fact. I said Battle of the Fs. So
Battle of the Fs. Yeah. There you go. There you go. All right. So we're going to round out this show with our best bets. As we said, Barry's agreeing with her. Battle of the Myths be too kind to these teams, but we'll see. The Panthers home crowd will still be out in force down there in Atlanta, is what Artie says. All right. So we both do think, though, that South Alabama will cover the current spread of 6.5 points against the Panthers. Is that because we think the Panthers aren't going to score much, or are we just trusting that that Jaguars offense will roll there against that Panther defense?
I think the Jaguars offense is going to play better because it frankly can't get worse. And I do think they're a better football team than Georgia State. So again, 7 points, I don't think is being too generous. I think them winning by 7 is that would be par for the course for me. The number I'm stuck on is 55.5. I don't see either of these teams getting to over that high. I wouldn't touch the over with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah.
However, I do think USA can win by and should win by 7 at least.
Yeah, I think they should. I would trust them in that situation. Not greatly, maybe, but I think they can get that done. So I felt comfortable putting that line there. TJ said that game is going to be electric. Dozens of people are going to go.
Tens of people will show up.
G. Wills wants to know if I'm making the trip for the lovely homecoming game between ODU and App State. That's the next one on our docket. Unfortunately, I am not. I am coaching my son's hockey team. He has games on the other side of the state in Winston-Salem starting at 8:30 a.m. So I probably won't even be back in time for that game to start, since that's a noon start on ESPNU. I would have loved to. I had planned on it until this hockey schedule came out. So much like TJ, we will now be coaching our sons during the weekends. That's going to take up a ton of our time. But hopefully I will get back to watch the majority of it here, and then obviously the rest of the slate as well. But friendly wager, sure. Let's work something out on Twitter tomorrow. We'll put something on the line there. Sam is saying, at least GSU ditched the quarterback rotation. Cam Brown is the guy. So there's one fan for Georgia State thinking that the youth movement has started and he's good with it. So we'll see if that pays off for the Panthers in Thursday night's matchup. You'll pay for the whole seat, but you only need the edge in the cat fight. That is good. It is cats. I do like that.
Seat, but you only need the edge. That's awesome.
This is a shout out to a little interaction we had. Loser has to buy a turbo, man. That's nice. You remember that movie, TJ, with Arnold Schwarzenegger, where he's battling for the last like action figure over Christmas? Turbo
I
Man.
do remember it. Vaguely though. Like I don't remember every part, but yes, vaguely.
Nice. Yeah, it's a classic Arnold movie, as they almost all are. David Ashbury saying he'll actually be in Winston-Salem for a law school 10-year reunion. Also be missing the ODU app. Well, I'll probably hit you up. I don't know if you're going to be there at the exact same time. I'll be on the ice rink, but it'd be cool to meet up if we could watch the game out that way. Neil wants app to wake the heck up. Yeah, I think a lot of people are asking for that. The over-under number is the amount of fans in the stands, not the score. That's good. That's good. All right. You did take app versus the spread, because that spread against ODU is 14.5 points.
Yeah,
we've seen ODU
we better
struggle.
not get beat by 14.5 points.
Yeah, we've seen ODU struggle to win, but they haven't really struggled to score a ton of points. I mean, James Madison notwithstanding, they had a chance to go over 30, had that first pass or two. I think it was second or third pass of that third quarter where he hit Trey Brown in stride and could have put them over the 30-point mark. But then obviously JMU put up 60 plus. But you like them against the spread for App State in this one against the Monarchs over there in Norfolk, huh?
Yeah, I just don't. I just think 15 points is entirely too many. We get beat by 15 points. I'm not watching any more Appalachian State games the rest of the year, other than November 22nd, which is the one I have to be at. Apart from that, I will not be watching any other games from App State if we lose by more than 15 points. So, but yeah, like you said, I'm banging the under or not under app versus the spread. I'm banging that hard just because I think I'm not saying we're going to win, but losing by 15 would just be a monstrosity. And I'm not prepared. My heart can't take that.
The reason I didn't touch that one is I think ODU's pissed, and I don't think I want them at home for homecoming. Like I could see it. I would be very disappointed, but I could see it. So I'll just say it that way. That's why I didn't touch that one specifically. But we both felt comfortable enough to take Southern Miss minus 10.5 points at home versus the Warhawks. I mean, this is just a good team versus a not so good team, right? Is that kind of the basic of our thought process on that one?
Yeah, I just think, I mean, quite honestly, I think 10.5 points is generous for ULM. I think they beat them by like 3 scores, quite honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I think the same thing. Like, you just saw what they did against Louisiana. I don't know if ULM is any better than the Cajuns. They might be on par, and they just beat them by 12. So, I mean, 10.5. Yeah, I think so, for sure. Sam wants to know our favorite dog of the week. Oof. I don't know. Well, I'll think about that while we go through the rest of them. Over under 78.5 rushing yards for Colton Joseph. Well, if Collier's any way to lean on for Coastal Carolina, what he did against App's defense, Colton Joseph will go well over 100 yards against this App State defense. But we'll see if that comes true. TJ has become the biggest Southern Miss fan. How the turntables.
I'm not Destiny. I'm not jinxing you. I'm just saying. All I'm saying is, your team is good, and you guys have been doing it, and so I gotta give credit and props where it's due.
Yeah, they definitely have. G Wills wants the over on the 62.5 points in ODU and App. I believe that's the one he's talking about. Or maybe he's talking about the Southern Miss ULM game, since we jumped over to that one. But either one, maybe I'd take the over on either one of those games, to be honest. I'm maybe not so sure about ULM scoring enough against Southern Miss, though, because that defense is pretty dang good. All right. Georgia Southern versus Arkansas State. We did talk about this one a little bit already. Not as confident in who wins this game, and that's why we picked it for the game of the week. But I am confident we're going to see a lot of points on the board. I think both offenses can put them up. So I was comfortable enough to take the 62.5 point total in that one. TJ, you didn't touch that one at all, huh?
No, I stayed away from this one. I think I alluded to it a little bit earlier. For me, I mean, it's kind of two run-of-the-mill, like, average teams, And so for me, them being average, I'm looking for, like you talked about, potentially a good game. Same thing, with the Battle of the Cats up top. I think it could be a really good game, but it's going to be a good game not because the teams are great, but because the matchup is good. Do you see what I'm saying? And so I think it'll be close. So I don't want to touch. I want to. I don't know. I don't think I want to do anything with this game.
Yeah. I didn't want to touch that Arkansas State one for the spread. It just 1.5 points. Usually, if it's that close, that's reason to not touch those types of games. But the point total, maybe. Cajuns on the road against Troy. The spread in this one, Trojans by -8.5, and you like that one.
Yeah, I do like Troy. Listen, Cajuns can't score the ball. They can't score. And their defense plays pretty well. But even if the defense holds you to 20 points, I don't think the Cajuns hadn't scored more than 14 points in quite a while. So I think 9 points, that's a touchdown and a field goal. I think that's very much possible.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So, I'm rolling with Troy.
They had 3 weeks ago against Marshall. They scored 54, but that was kind of when Lunch came on and just had that just miracle of a finish.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. The last 2 weeks, 14 or less points on both outings. So offense sputtering a little bit, which is also surprising because they have that run game that works so well. It's probably the attrition of the offensive line with the injuries. So maybe that's where some people are holding back or whatnot on what they may be capable to do there. And to go back, G. Wills was saying over on the Colton Joseph yard for rushing against App State. Thinks he's going to go over what TJ had said with that 78.5. Yeah, I think he'll have that quite easily. The only reason he wouldn't have that is if he's throwing all over the place, because he's been pretty good at that this year, as well as we saw in that first half against James Madison. But Sullivan's throwing out a challenge to see if G. Will go with 399.5 yards total for Colton Joseph, or maybe he means, total yards. That's what he has. So we'll see if those two continue rolling with that. But we've gone over an hour and 45 minutes in this one. Lots of grades given out. Some made a lot of sense. Some were questionable. But all of them were a lot of fun, at least for me.
Right.
I'm sure TJ could say the same.
For sure.
Be sure to check out some, Sunbelt football on Thursday night. Their national television audience is real sickos watching 2 1-6 teams. Oh, but before we go, Destiny has a bet for us. I'm guessing it involves her team, but we'll see here in a second, TJ. What she's got up her sleeve, see if it's a scary one or something that we'd feel comfortable taking on. But yeah, give a quick shout out again while we wait on that to Don't Sleep Energy. Check them out. They've got those little energy shot bottles as well if you don't want the big can. I think I have one right here. Yeah, nice and small. Not a whole lot of calories. This one specifically is sugar-free, so there's no calories in this one. And that Phenom Elite at your local Dick's Sporting Goods. We'll have a ton of Sunbelt basketball coverage coming out for you on the website, sunbeltsyndicate.com. We are working in the background to get basketball players and coaches on for some interviews before their seasons start up. So we'll see how that goes tomorrow. And David wants to know, is tomorrow the first team to clinch not going to a bowl with a loss? Yeah, I think because
South Alabama and Georgia.
South Alabama doesn't have an FBS win. Yeah. So if they lose, they are definitely not going bowling. That's true. And then Georgia State's only win is also FCS. Yeah, that's right. Let's see. Destiny says, per your own funds. For what?
I don't have any funds, so that excludes me.
Yeah, same here. We pulled it all into doing this for you guys, so no extra funds to be spent.
That and our son's expensive.
Our bets are penny bets. Yeah. Also, hockey is an expensive sport. Not cheap to get on the ice. But we'll see what transpires. That will wrap it up. Oh, read out of order. I'm trying to go back to see what she said. TJ says he's waiting on the edge of his seat for Destiny to type. Oh, this is my bad. Okay, here it comes. All right. Waiting patiently, fingers on the trigger here, typing away. See what she's going to come up with. It better be like she's going to pay for plane tickets to us to go see a game if she loses or something. That'd be great.
I feel like as much as she's been on my case, the least she could do is buy me a ticket.
Yeah. What if this is just a ploy to get us to stay on here and she has no bet? No, I'm just kidding.
No, maybe.
Okay, she said, I said if USM wins 7 games, we need TJ in a Southern Miss shirt.
Oh, no. Oh, my gosh. Okay, well, okay. Here's the thing. I'll wear it, but you have to buy it.
There you go.
How about that?
I like that. Oh, she said she'd put this up earlier, but we missed it. But I'm scrolling up and I don't see it, so I don't know why it didn't pop up. But Sullivan's throwing out something. How about 9? Which is good because they're close to 7 already. So we'll have to see. But she is fair. That's double what you expected, TJ. So
yeah. And listen, I'll wear it if you buy it. Send it to me, and then there we go.
There we go. Or she can talk Southern Miss into sending it to you. You could get out of this completely scotch-free, Destiny. You just got to tell your people to send it over. Warren's saying he's got our Troy tickets if we come down. So there we go. If there's a championship game, Warren's going to pay extra money for our championship tickets. Oh man, TJ's really going hard on you. Well, Sullivan's saying if it's 9, you buy it, TJ.
That's fair.
And
that's fair. Okay. All right.
She said, let's be realistic. Perhaps she will consult my manager, she says. Oh, man. All right. That is a great way. Oh, she says deal. She's taking it. All right.
Okay. All right. Here we go.
And here we go. We're going to be on our way out. Thank you all for tuning in. Keep following along. Like I said, we got a lot of stuff coming for you, working hard in the background, and we will see you all for the wrap-up show Sunday night. See y'all later.